In the beginning there was darkness, and in that darkness a story was born, a tale as old as time itself, whispered through the ages, echoing in the hearts of every man, woman, and child. This, my friends, is the story of the forbidden fruit. Picture, if you will, a garden. Not just any garden, but a paradise beyond imagination. A place where the very air shimmered with the essence of perfection. This was Eden, the cradle of humanity, where our journey began. Now, in this garden, two figures walked. Adam and Eve, the first man and woman, created in the image of God Himself. They lived in harmony with nature, tending to the lush greenery and communing with the animals that roamed freely. But there was one rule, one commandment that they were given. In the center of the garden stood a tree, its branches heavy with fruit that gleamed like jewels in the sunlight. This was the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and its fruit was forbidden. But why, you might ask, would God place such temptation before His creations? Was it a test, a cruel joke, or perhaps something more profound? The answer, my friends, lies in the very nature of free will. For you see, without choice, there can be no true obedience. Without temptation, there can be no real virtue. And so, the tree stood, a silent sentinel, waiting. Days turned to weeks, and weeks to months. Adam and Eve lived in blissful ignorance, content in their paradise. But, as with all good things, this too was destined to change. Enter the serpent, cunning, persuasive, and with a silver tongue that could charm the birds from the trees. This wasn't just any snake, mind you. This was the embodiment of temptation itself, coiled and ready to strike. Now, imagine Eve, walking alone one day, her bare feet caressing the soft grass. The serpent approaches, its scales glinting in the dappled sunlight. And then, it speaks. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? It asks, its voice dripping with false innocence. Eve, caught off guard, replies, we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden. But God did say, you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it or you will die. The serpent's eyes gleam with triumph. You will not certainly die, it hisses. For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. And there it was, the seed of doubt, planted in fertile soil. Eve looked at the fruit with new eyes. It was beautiful, enticing, promising knowledge beyond her wildest dreams. She reached out, her fingers trembling, ... But what happened next? Did Eve succumb to temptation? And what of Adam? What consequences awaited them if they dared to defy God's command? The answers, my friends, lie in the choices we make every day. For the story of the forbidden fruit is not just a tale from long ago. It's a reflection of our own struggles, our own temptations. As Eve's hand closed around the fruit, she felt its weight, both physical and metaphorical. The smooth skin against her palm seemed to pulse with possibility. With one bite, she could unlock the secrets of the universe. Or so she thought. The first bite was tentative, hesitant. But, as the juice touched her tongue, a flood of sensations washed over her. Colors seemed brighter, sounds clearer. It was as if a veil had been lifted from her eyes. Excited by her newfound awareness, Eve rushed to Adam. She held out the fruit, her eyes shining with a new light. Adam, seeing the change in his beloved, hesitated only for a moment before taking his own bite. And in that instant, everything changed. Shame, a concept foreign to them until that moment, crashed over them like a tidal wave. They looked at each other, and for the first time, saw their nakedness. Frantically, they gathered fig leaves, fashioning crude coverings for themselves. But it wasn't just their physical state that had changed. A new awareness had dawned, a knowledge of good and evil that they had never before comprehended. And with that knowledge came the crushing weight of responsibility. As the cool of the evening approached, they heard the sound they had always welcomed, the footsteps of God walking in the garden. But this time, instead of running to greet him, they hid. "Where are you?" God called, his voice echoing through the trees. Adam, his voice trembling, replied, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." And there it was, the first lie, born from the first sin. For Adam and Eve had always been naked, but only now did they feel shame. God, in his infinite wisdom, knew what had transpired. He turned to the serpent, cursing it to crawl on its belly for all time. To Eve, he decreed that childbirth would be painful, and that her desire would be for her husband, who would rule over her. And to Adam, he declared that the ground would be cursed, producing thorns and thistles, and that he would toil and sweat to produce food until he returned to the dust from which he came. But even in this moment of judgment, there was mercy, for God made garments of skin for Adam and Eve, clothing them in his love, even as he banished them from the garden. As they stepped out of Eden, the world seemed darker, harsher. The perfection they had known was lost, replaced by a world of struggle and hardship. But with that loss came something new, the potential for growth, for learning, for becoming more than they had been. And so, humanity's journey began in earnest, a journey of triumphs and failures, of joy and sorrow, of love and loss. A journey that continues to this day, with each of us facing our own forbidden fruits, our own moments of temptation. For you see, the story of Adam and Eve is not just a tale from a dusty old book. It's a mirror held up to our own lives, reflecting our struggles, our choices, our very humanity. Every day, we stand before our own trees of knowledge. Every day, we hear the whispers of our own serpents, promising us power, knowledge, fulfillment. And every day, we must choose. Will we reach for the fruit, consequences be damned? Or will we turn away, trusting in a wisdom greater than our own? The choice, my friends, is yours. For in the end, that is what it means to be human. To choose, to fail, to learn, and to choose again. So, the next time you face temptation, remember Adam and Eve. Remember the garden. Remember the fruit. And ask yourself, what will your choice be? For in that choice lies the essence of who you are and who you will become. In that choice lies your own story, waiting to be written. And now, I leave you with this question. What is your forbidden fruit? What temptation calls to you in the quiet moments of your life? Share your thoughts, your struggles, your triumphs, for in sharing we learn, in sharing we grow, and in sharing we honor the legacy of those who came before us, those who took that first, fateful bite. Remember, the story doesn't end here. It continues with you. So go forth, make your choices, and write your own chapter in the grand narrative of humanity. The fruit is before you. What will you do?